and I saw these chefs in these crisp white jackets, tall white hats. 7 years old, I was like, you know what, that's what I want to do when I grow up. And I said, Grandma, I know what I want to be when I grow up. I want to be a chef. And I said, when I open my own restaurant, you'll be working in the kitchen with me. And it's been cooking ever since. So, and I just, with her, just learning, you know, passion and how to take care of ingredients and how to understand that food brings people together. I mean, we were kind of the typical, you know, Sunday we all got together, soul food, we all would eat together, we would go to church together, and then, you know, next Sunday the same thing. So, I mean, that's why I think I got that passion from her. Now, my mom, single parent, 4 boys, she didn't cook a lot. But, you know, of course I give her credit because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her. She basically inspired me to continue doing what I was doing. I mean, there was at one point where I was in school and I dropped out and I didn't tell her. But luckily, some of the administrators at the school knew my mom and they called her and they told her. And she calls me, she goes, so what is this I hear you quit, you dropped out? I said, well, you know, she was going through some financial problems, and I said, well, Mom, I want to come home and help. And she said, Kevin, if you leave that school, you might as well not come home. I'll never talk to you again. I want you to get your education, get your degree. And then when I got my AOS degree, went back home, worked for 3 years, the CIA was starting their own bachelor's program. And they called and said, hey, we have this new bachelor's program. We're looking for students to come back. It's basically the guinea pig program, but you're gonna get your bachelor's degree. And at first, I was like, no, you know, I'm 21, 22, I'm living at home. You know, I'm a sous chef, I'm making decent money, I'm living the life. And my mom, once again, said, no, you need to go get your bachelor's degree. And I went back in '94 and got my bachelor's degree. I was in Michigan, I was working in Detroit. I worked for the MGM Grand Casino. Actually, I was one of the opening chefs. The original casino was basically across the street. They built a permanent facility, which they spent about $1 billion to build the casino. I went in as a chef for it's called Palette Restaurant, and basically it's your normal, think of a casino buffet times 100. So I was there about 2 years prior to getting a call from Alex, president of BCA. He had met Mike Sabo years before, and they were talking about trying to, I guess, improve their diversity here on campus by bringing in an African-American chef. Alex suggested that he speak with me. I got the call, we kind of went back and forth. I applied, I came to visit, fell in love with the city. Actually fell in love with just being here and seeing African-American students wanting to get a culinary education. I mean, there was one student in particular that basically came up to me and said, you have to take this job. I don't know you, but you have to take this job. And that really struck with me. So when I went back home to contemplate the decision, it was a no-brainer. And my grandmother is originally from this area. So she's like, Kevin, maybe it's something that's saying you need to full circle. You know, a lot of my ancestors settled in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Maybe this is something that you really need to do. And I thought about it, and it was a no-brainer. I mean, you know, being able to mold a future chef had become more important to me than becoming the super chef that I originally wanted to become. I wanted to be Emeril Lagasse. I wanted to be Charlie Trotter and Patrick Clark and be in magazines and have all this fame. But I got to a point where I figured, you know, it's time for you to give back. I've done many things in my career. I've been blessed to be on television, to be in the newspapers and have a radio show. Now it's time for me to say, you know what, I need to get students, African Americans, any student, doesn't matter, to a level where I am and maybe even beyond what I'm doing. BCA, I've been a member of the BCA since my time at the Culinary Institute of America. Basically, we started off as the Minority Cultural Society, and it was an organization for minorities on campus. It was a way for us to stay in contact. The way the school is, every 3 weeks, new students come in, old students go out, and you just get lost. And a lot of students were failing this class here, failing that class there, and there was no way of us keeping track of what was going on. So a few of us got together and said, we need to get together and talk about being a support system for fellow students that may be failing their culinary math class, or they're having some issues at home and they need someone like them to talk to. From there, when I graduated, we kind of broke off, and so then we became the Black Culinarian Alliance of the Culinary Institute of America. And we were doing that for years, and we officially formed that organization in '92. Basically 13 of us, all alumni from CIA, got in a room and said, hey, we need to do something. We need to make a change. We need to let people know about the contributions of minorities in the industry, and let people know that the industry employs more minorities than any other industry on the face of the earth. So we got together, we formed that organization, and eventually we became incorporated, and we broke off basically from CIA, and then we were basically the Black Culinary Alliance. We spent some years dealing with that, and we had some pushback because, the word black, it frightened some people, so to speak. So eventually, just knowing how the industry changes and how things are growing, we decided we need to look at things more globally. So we need to start really being inclusive and talking about diversity and talking about introducing and bringing in other minority chefs, Asian, Latino. We definitely wanted to put our hands out for female chefs, even Native Americans. So that's when we changed the name to Bridging Culinary Awareness. Kept BCA, so a lot of people still associate us with the Black Culinary Alliance. So even trying to set up my chapter here and trying to get students interested, a lot of our non-Black students were like, well, chef, I can't join your organization. Well, why can't you join my organization? Well, chef, I'm white. I said, you can still join the organization as long as you believe in what our mission is, and that is to expose people to the contributions and the opportunities for minorities in the hospitality and culinary industry. So BCA has been with me for 20 plus years. I get really passionate because BCA is, initially for me it was about, people not understanding that when all the European and French chefs came over during the 80s, and all these French chefs were running the best restaurants in America, people didn't understand that in the back of the kitchen, the dishwashers, prep cooks, even sometimes porters, bussers, they were minorities. Even the greatest chef alive, Escoffier, back in the 1400s, he had a crew of minorities. So it's always been important for me to tell people and to get them to understand that, hey, we've been doing this for a long time, and I actually wrote a paper chronicling what we were doing when we got off the boat up until when I wrote it in 1996, and who were some of the more prevalent, prominent African-American chefs making waves at that point. Chefs like Patrick Clark, Darrell Evans, first Black chef on the Culinary Olympic team, Leah Chase. All these people, and then getting them to understand that Thomas Jefferson's chef was Black. He went to France to learn how to cook from French chefs. So for me, it's always been a thing where you talk about cooking and cuisine, you have to include minorities. you're just doing a disservice to the industry. I mean, you can see today in our class we're doing the food of India. Well, some of that food was influenced by the African.